Boss fights suck. Depending on the kind of person you are, you're either going to be extremely confused by that or sigh and nod in agreement. Boss fights are one of the oldest tropes in video games, but it feels like most developers still don't know how to nail them. Almost every boss fight is in the Mario camp of do a thing 3 times, leave and fuck off, or the Doom camp of wail on this big wall of 3000 health while it does 1 or 2 attacks. Most of these aren't bad, they're just okay, but even some of my favorite games ever screech to a halt when they have to have a boss encounter, because, and here's the secret, most bosses are not an ultimate test of challenge. They're variety segments, like getting shoved into a car. Sonic the Hedgehog is designed around running in a large level. He is not designed for pacing around a box-shaped room hitting a thing repeatedly. There are exceptions to this rule, obviously, and even games with mediocre bosses have interesting mechanics, but bosses are almost always there for the sake of tradition. There's something we're just expected to have. So to make a game entirely around them sounds like an idea that'd turn terrible fast. That's like making turret section adventures. And yet, Cuphead, a game that is exactly that, is one of the greatest games of all time. With unmatched energy, polish, uniqueness, and just pure fun, this game passes with flying colors, which is honestly a miracle, as it's one of the few that managed to survive the hand-animated curse. Oh, you kids have no idea. Back in the 90s, they had a whole trend of lovingly crafted 2D visuals for games that rivaled the likes of Disney, but almost every single one sucks to play. You had 2 options: make the best visuals ever with mediocre gameplay, or great game with plain good pixel art. Cuphead feels like it should have come out on the PS1 and be mind-blowingly beautiful, but so utterly bullshit that only true retro freaks can conquer it. But thankfully it was given the time it needed to be nearly perfect. More than that, Cuphead is a monument to the power of self-love and confidence in your identity. But okay, start at the start. Why does Cuphead nail what so many games don't? After careful study and comparison, I found the 3 cores of design that make Cuphead's bosses stand out. Then we can gush about the minutia like nerds. Number 1. The player control is designed around making small movements. It's no coincidence that most of the good platformer bosses are in games where the movement is slow and precise. Even in Mario, where his moveset is made to be flexible for different situations, it's still designed for athleticism, not avoidance. Cuphead strives when cornered, and it's why the run and gun levels aren't as good. Your moveset just isn't designed for this kind of challenge, and while the levels work and are not unfun, it's decidedly not what we're here for. Number 2. There's strategy other than simply avoiding and hitting the boss. Parry is the easiest example of this. Anything colored pink can be parried, adding to your super meter that also gets built up by doing damage, letting you use either an EX move, a powered up version of your normal shot that costs 1 card, or a super art, a special ability that takes up 5 cards. And the thing is, both of these are based on your equipment. Especially when going for high ranks, we'll get to you, your loadout can make or break the fight. Pea-shooter and Sprite is my go-to all-around style, but some bosses made me use weapons I thought would rot in my inventory, like Lobber or Chaser. There's also the charms, or as I like to call them, Heart Ring Smoke Bomb in the game. Okay, it's not as cut and dry as that, but the charms could be a bit more balanced, especially compared to the weapons. Still though, the equipment system on top of the super system means that you are constantly thinking about things that aren't just attacking and avoiding. Other games have extremely loose and abusable parries, while Cuphead's parry has a strict rule, and it has a great aha moment of thinking, oh yeah, that is pink, isn't it? Instead of it feeling like waiting for the pink thing to come out, it feels like a genuine surprise and reaction challenge to get the pink thing, especially when, while sometimes it's random, other times it's extremely fixed. And parrying doesn't directly make things easier, it just contributes to your meter and rank. And 3, and this one is the most important, bosses are designed around DPS being the challenge, not waiting for opportunities. 99% of every boss has them vulnerable, with only a couple exceptions that feel earned. These 3 aspects combine into the perfect exchange of control and pacing. The player and boss are constantly dancing, making small and large movements as you're both dishing out new attacks. Most boss fights feel like playing tennis alone, while Cuphead feels like a proper duel. Dynamic is the word you should remember. Every boss changes drastically while still retaining a core theme, and the best fights are constantly throwing new ideas at you. In platformer levels, it's easy to see new objects and quantify the amount of ideas they had, but for this game, it's hard to appreciate just how much shit they throw at you. Like, okay, the core is multi-phase boss fights, and so many bosses try such cool ways to extrapolate on that. Shootin' and lootin' with Captain Brightbeard, instead of having strict and clear phases like other bosses, has one phase with the same attacks with more and more shit getting added onto it. But since they're introduced so gradually, you get a good handle on every one of them. But once you have that figured out, the game then throws you for a loop with one final phase that introduces new attacks while that fucking barrel is still out. Hey, Pro tip, you can dash while crouching. Junkyard Jive with Dr. Call's robot has a non-linear approach to the phases, where he has 3 weak points that each perform a different attack. Take one out and he gets replaced with a different one, so it's up to you on what's the high priority target initially, and which one you want to deal with for the shortest amount of time. That's sick! And even when they aren't doing some big gimmick, there's always new patterns and sprinkles of new iterations of mechanics or some visual motif to tie everything together. Dramatic Fanatic being a fight that takes place over an entire play with Sally's stage play, with a full 3-act structure and final bow, is not only adorable, but all the little details are super funny. Could someone port this into Mugen as a stage? And the rubber hose visuals perfectly complement this design, as almost every boss has an intense one-winged angel moment of going completely nuts, towering over the brothers like elastic monoliths. While people mostly compare the art to Disney, and there are some Disney references in there, this kind of insane looseness is the trademark of Fleischer Studios, the biggest inspiration, and you can feel that with every frame. While there are hilarious animations, the key is that the characters aren't funny 24/7. They just exist, and sometimes they make funny faces. The idea that every frame needed a gag is more Ren and Stimpy than Mickey Mouse. Actually look at cartoons from the era and beyond and you'll realize how often characters just move in an aesthetically pleasing way. Something like Swing You Sinners is more comparable to an AIM Kid Neil Cicierega AMV than it is to any modern cartoon. Even Looney Tunes, the one known for its edgier, zany, comedy-focused take on cartoons, knew when to hold back and when to really let loose. That's the secret. Restraint. It really is one-to-one, but tribute is paid to the era of animation without shameless copying. There's no Leps World core designs of on-the-nose pastiches. There's a reality where this game starred Randy Rat and Mosswall the Lucky Cat or some shit, and it would have put me in the hospital, but the drinkware main characters feel genuine in how specific it is. Cuphead and Mugman fit perfectly with characters like Bimbo and Coco. Also, headcanon, they had a dead relative that was a war veteran that was a thermal flask. This has no relevance. This philosophy goes double with the entire cast. The aforementioned Captain Brinybeard kinda looks like Bluto, especially his appearance as Sinbad, but it's only really his face, and everything else in the fight looks unique. Hildeberg is kinda like Olive Oil with Betty Boop's hair, but she turns into a blimp and a moon and has constellation attacks and shit. These gnomes are based on Betty Boop's Snow White, this walking flame appears in Bimbo's Initiation, the stop motion background is based on the Technicolor Popeye tunes. It shows a fuck ton of love for the medium, but on top of that, respect. You don't show respect to something by copying it wholesale. You show respect by identifying the core appeal and elaborating on that, making it your own thing. Don't believe me?
And we wanted to do an homage, but never be overtly one thing. We didn't want somebody playing Cuphead and taken out of the universe going, this is from that game. So everything that we kind of try to achieve is very subtle.
But the game isn't afraid to reference things. It has a clear love for retro games, but they always do it in such funny and unique ways. I'm very picky about references, as I think it's one of the things that amateur creatives indulge themselves on too much, but I'm okay with blunt references if it adds a layer of reality. John and Dave musing about bottle pissing is funnier if they're talking about a real scene from a real movie that we can watch and see the bottle pissing in. The Springfield kids excitedly sneaking into a theater to watch Barton Fink is only funny if that's a real movie with facts about it that make their enthusiasm funny. It's like swearing. It's okay when it makes something feel more real, but it can't be entertaining by itself. Cuphead does not need this. It firmly plants itself in the unreal and therefore does not need to wink and nod to the camera. King Dice is based on Cab Calloway, but they don't rub your face in it. And when they do references like the Root Pack being named after the Rat Pack, that's a boomer-ass reference that a real cartoon would do. Can you name 2 people in this image? I can, because I'm an asshole. And when they're video game references, they're adjusted to be era appropriate. Ruby and Croaks perform Ryu and Ken's taunts from Third Strike at the start of the fight, then E-Honda's 100 Hand Slap and Guile's Sonic Boom, but they're subtle enough and work so well with the characters that I didn't even notice until someone pointed it out to me. And, most importantly, Cuphead earns these winks and nods by being so fresh and original mechanically and aesthetically. Like, yeah, they're basing their style off of a specific era, but only because nobody the fuck else dared to try. It's a style that hasn't been done before in a video game, and a new mechanic ideas that, while they have clear inspiration, haven't been done in this unique blend before. It's evocative of the moment of realization the Bioshock devs had, realizing nobody's done an Art Deco styled game before. It is a new aesthetical idea and a new mechanical idea, making it in my mind the perfect video game. No, it is not literally perfect, but it is the perfect new video game I want to find. A distinct and endlessly captivating style and atmosphere paired with a unique and addicting core gameplay loop that will leave me begging for more. This, Plants vs. Zombies, and Pizza Tower are the 3 games I always prop up as exactly what I want to find when I play a new game. Again, none of these are literally perfect, but they are the perfect find for me. To explain why, I want to go over some specific encounters and why I think they showcase the game's genius. Oh, real quickly, as a thank you to everyone who supported me, I'm gonna be doing a submission form for a game I should make a video on. It can be literally any game that doesn't get the video banned. Become a member on YouTube or Ko-Fi and you can submit a game, then vote for what you want to see. No cheating here, I will actually review whatever you force me to.
Good day for us. Well done. Here goes.
Marine Corps is a fantastic showcase of this game's method of introduction, evolution, and how it tests you. Aesthetically, this fight is hilarious and unique. A semi-realistically sized mouse with a shrunken down Cuphead and Mugman fighting, while a cat trounces its way through the background. Vanna Veman himself is one of my favorite character designs, and his shtick of a mad scientist rat using crap from around the house is delightful. You can very easily imagine Rube Goldberg-esque contraptions just off screen, controlling all the doohickeys at his disposal. In the first phase, Vanna is rolling back and forth as various contraptions emerge from his can tank. Love the detail of his eyes sticking out the front. His constant movement can make predicting the exact patterns tricky, but a couple tries and you get the hang of the cycle. This is one of a few attacks that require you to parry to avoid it, as he'll throw out these springs you have to launch yourself with by parrying them. A really unique parry obstacle. One of the biggest strengths of the art and game design working together is phase transitions. Naturally, without you even thinking about it, Vanna rolls into the center as the outer shell of the tank is destroyed and phase 2 begins. Vanna subverting his own MacGyver-esque gimmick for a pair of flamethrowers. A hilariously sudden juxtaposition, as more thematically appropriate razor-sharp bottle caps move in and out of the way. Some of the most fun patterns in this game, and some of the most bullshit, come from multitasking. You have to worry about Werner's position when the flamethrower is going off and when the cans are going to go off, but it's an entirely readable scenario, as the only threats you have to deal with are Werner's repeated single attack and when the soda cans emerge, which is very clearly telegraphed. This is the most fun phase, and I honestly wish it went on longer, as it feels like it's over in a flash. Maybe I'm just too good. However, Cuphead goes above and beyond and subverts itself even further by Werner getting fucking eaten by the family cat, completely abandoning the recycled scrap tech theme for a plain cut final round against the cat. Fighting just a large cat would be a pretty boring fight, but as a final surprise, it's perfect. The Katzenwagen is another perfect blend of a simple cycle that requires constant attention. He'll swipe from either side of the screen and cause wood chunks to fall from the ceiling, then release ghost prisoner rats that throw extra projectiles. Betby the Clown's final phase had a similar dynamic of a repeated attack followed by summoning minions, but I think this incarnation is a lot more fair. You have way more space to move around and less to keep track of. While it does feel like a mechanical abandon of the previous phases, it's an intentional decision, as the guy you were actually fighting got eaten, and speaking purely design-wise, there wasn't a core unique mechanic to this fight that earned being present through the entire match. This also carries the idea of bosses having final phases that are actually easier than what was before it, as the challenge comes from the endurance of being able to make it there, and that's a really smart balance that not many devs would think about. However, in one final subversion, once the boss is dead, the Katzenwagen was part of Vanna's arsenal all along, giving the fight an even stronger narrative cohesion. It's a plot twist, a really simple one, sure, but it's entirely told through the animations of a boss and feels like you played through a miniature short. And that's the genius of this fight. It all flows naturally from one part to the next. Vanna isn't the best fight, but he perfectly represents the dynamicism I was talking about earlier.
This match will get red hot. It's on.
Dramatic Fanatic is another incredible showcase of playing a short story in a level. Sally's stage play sets herself apart from the other bosses in one word: size. Every other boss is at least 3 Cupheads tall, usually more, while Sally is barely 2. She's heavily influenced by fighting games, evident from her intro being a nod to Urians and Third Strike, and it really does feel like you're playing against a fighting game character, as she has multiple special moves she performs while moving around the arena. Her first and second phase are essentially the same with some swapped out attacks. She can perform a sneaky teleport and a jumping dive kick, potentially a reference to Space Mama? You're not really used to such an agile and pressuring opponent, so you really have to wire your brain around her being able to move as much as you, but her attacks are readable enough that it feels like an equal exchange despite the odds being objectively in your favor. The setting for this is perfect too, as the first phase is you crashing her wedding only for her to leave and get hitched without you, then the second phase is her trying to raise a child only to run back into you, like an old wound reopened. I like to imagine Cuphead is playing the role of some kind of loan shark, like she had a life of crime until wanting to settle down, but the mob never forgets. She then dies within the play as you fight her in heaven and she turns into a god.
Ooh, she can fly! I think it's supposed to symbolize her descent into madness.
This is such a clever reference to Final Fantasy. The attack names appear as spells are cast, her big JRPG final boss form, but it's all recontextualized as a gag in a Fleischer cartoon. And it's funny! The visual gags are genuinely funny. It reminds me of the weird animation they use in Monty Python, although I imagine it's more based on a specific cartoon. This also has easily the funniest secret phase, a really cool mechanic of the game, where if you parry off these hearts and land on both platforms, you can kill the husband and the play changes. Instead of the baby throwing bottles, it's a nun throwing crows. crosses, and Phase 3 now has the husband and their unborn baby in heaven. It's so needlessly dark, but it totally works because it's within the play's story. And it finally ending with a curtain call as Sally's stage play refuses to let go is super funny and is a nice final phase to wrap things up. It's also, once again, the easiest phase even though it's at the last. This is a perfect little encounter that showcases another blend of art and game design to create an endlessly memorable stage.
Here's a real high-class bout. And begin!
Railroad Wrath, unlike the other fights I mentioned, is what I call a variety boss, meaning that instead of one specific enemy to fight, each phase has you go against a different enemy in a group. This is easily my favorite thematic variety fight, being a battle against the various members of the Phantom Express, all tied together with a core mechanic, the train cart. Instead of a normal arena, you stand on a platform that can be moved by parrying these two cranks. While you technically have the entire screen to move around, you can't be in any place at any time. In a fight like Floral Fury, the arena is simple and unchanging, with Cagney himself always at the right side of the screen, so they're comfortable assaulting you with waves of projectiles and Cagney juggling various attacks because all you have to focus on is yourself and the boss. For Railroad Wrath, each phase only has 2 attacks, the monster itself and a minion that spawns pink objects, this pumpkin in the first 2 and this ghost in the third. These are really predictable and easy to avoid enemies, but if the projectile hits the cart, it can force it to move, really fucking you up if you aren't careful. This multitasking and tense positioning is extremely fun, and it shows how to properly add a new gimmick. This card is instantly understandable because you've been parrying the whole game, and you've already fought bosses with hazardous floors. The first phase, Blind Spectre, is a great introduction to the mechanic. He's stationed to the right and throws out bouncing eyeballs that can be destroyed, meaning that you don't actually even need to use the cart. You can just barely hit him with spread if you're on the very right of the platform without moving it, but it's tricky and can get you killed. Also, fuck me, the glowing effect on him looks so good and style accurate. A lot of cell animation have this effect of placing a light under holes in the animation and it always looks so pretty. It's like it's brighter than everything else. It's surprisingly hard to recreate that effect, so good job. The second phase is up against the conductor as you move to the body of the train. After a moment, the head appears and 2 hands slam down. The safest place to be is right under the head, especially since that makes it easier to shoot, but you're still able to avoid the hands. The slow and predictable attack pattern is a great way to test you and if you get the trolley mechanics or not. I will say, sometimes the pumpkin's candy can drop in such a way where you cannot parry it without bouncing into the conductor's head and taking a hit, which is pretty upfrontly bullshit, but thankfully not parrying the candy is just an inconvenience at worst. The third phase tests your skill with the cart the most, fighting against the Lollipop Ghouls, a duo positioned on the left and right sides. These guys are utterly bizarre. One of them has their head detached, move to the other side of the screen while throwing up lightning, then move back. They're the quickest to dispose of, but their attack can be deadly if you aren't a wizard with a trolley yet. You can actually hide behind the one attacking to avoid them entirely, but this also leaves you in a bad spot to shoot at them. Since they're 2 targets, anything with a piercing effect is great. Converge is a great weapon for this, and Energy Beam as your super can melt them almost immediately. I love the scenario here of going further along the express as each fight progresses. It adds a sense of, well, progression. They work extremely well as your last fight before entering hell, especially considering the association with the undead. You're literally taking a ride to the afterlife. But like with the previous fights, Cuphead knows how to make a satisfying end. So this boss breaks the typical 3-phase structure by pitting you against the Phantom Express itself. The head of the train is a perfect finale as the head abandons the body of the train in exchange for a more intimate showdown. Sugarland Shimmy is another variety boss that I don't think is as good mechanically or aesthetically, even if it's stellar, but they do an equally good job of hyping up the final phase. Baroness von Bonbon was an inevitability, but her slowly becoming more involved as the fight progresses, ending with her castle chasing you down is a wonderful capping point. The head of the train, meanwhile, is a great narrative and mechanical cap, but also feels like a genuine surprise. The best plot twists always feel inevitable yet unpredictable. Now you have to parry the train itself to open its furnace, as it spews a shower of projectiles. It's a bit visually noisy, but I think it's mostly readable and there's only 2 projectile types. It helps that you don't need to worry much about the trolley anymore, even if it's still in play. Literally, I don't even touch it and I'm always fine. Although if you're playing on expert, the pumpkin fuckers can still mess with it, but I'm a gamer god so it doesn't bug me. Phantom Express is a great example of how the game plays on its own mechanics. The trolley is a genius way of adding a new mechanic that iterates on previous ones. It's a new way to use the parry and a new thing to worry about when avoiding obstacles, but it doesn't feel like a cheap gimmick. It's pure in that way. A perfect finale to Aisle 3. I also want to give a mention to the DLC fight Dog on Dog Fight. It's another variety fight with a central platform mechanic, being that you're standing on a plane piloted by Canteen Hughes that moves depending on where you're standing. It's a similar idea, but done differently enough that it really stands out. I don't think there's enough unique for me to describe in detail, but I love this gag of Brigadier Boneguard manhandling a cat as a weapon. That's some real Tom and Jerry shit. But the big showstopper is the final phase, where after enough time figuring out the plane, they suddenly throw anti-gravity at you. You know, somebody on TV Tropes said this was a reference to Sans' fight in Undertale. No, it isn't. This is a perfect showcase of how Cuphead restrains itself with difficulty, though. The idea of a Cuphead boss where you repeatedly switch gravity sounds hellish, but there is a clear pattern of the screen turning 90 degrees every time, and notably, there's actually not much going on outside of that. It's once again Cuphead's golden rule of only 3 things max to worry about. It's a really simple telegraph attack of lasers firing, the screen flips, and Sergeant O'Farah makes yourself visible, firing 2 projectiles, yellow dog balls that go above you, and red dog balls that have to be jumped over. This is the only attack you have to worry about, and everything else is super clearly laid out. Then, the screen flips again, rinse and repeat. It's an easy to read loop of easy to read attacks, once again following the idea that the easiest phase is at the last, and the idea that more gimmicks means less shit to worry about. Gold star.
Good doggy. Play dead.
This match will get red hot. It's on.
Speaking of the DLC, a new scenario that was introduced was the King's Leap. Instead of run and gun levels, you get your coins from fights with the members of the King's Court. These are all one-phase fights where you can't use weapons or charms, instead relying entirely on moving and parrying. This is a much smarter method of a change of pace with a focus on platforming, since it still abides by Cuphead's boss structure. All of these are great fights, but I want to shout out the Bishop and the Knight. The Bishop remains in the background as their head moves around the arena, shooting bells at you, while candles light up in the arena. Touching a candle puts it out, and when all are out, the head can be parried, doing damage. Do this a few times and you win. This is such a great way to have a more platforming focused boss, as it takes full advantage of your moveset being designed for evasion rather than athleticism, like we talked about earlier. It's a really fun fight because it's so simple and focused on raw movement. My favorite boss of these though is the Knight. This is an extremely unique boss in that it behaves, more than any other, like a duel. The Knight will not attack you if you're too far away, instead beckoning you to come forward. If you do, they'll perform one of a few attacks and leave their main vulnerable to parrying, reducing their health. I compared Sally's stage play to a duel, but this is an actual fucking duel. You have to bait the enemy into attacking to get it at a weak spot. All of my deaths were my own fault because I got greedy. It is such a good feeling to get multiple hits in and safely back off, that I kept trying to score more and more. It's a delightful little shakeup, but I'd love to see this concept of melee duels in a platformer turned into a fuller game, as I think there's a lot of potential here, something kind of like a mix of Cuphead and Punch-Out. I haven't played Hollow Knight, but maybe your attack could be like that game? Honestly, if anyone out there has a platformer with Goomba stomping as a mechanic, this might be how to incorporate boss fights. Dude, look at how much I'm pondering from this one boss, it's so cool!
DLC and spoilers.
A brawl is surely brewing. You're up.
A Dish to Die For is how you do a final boss. One Hell of a Time is definitely solid, but it's a bit lacking. But it's completely made up for this all-timer. Chef Saltbaker is an okay villain, but he absolutely steals the show in this fight. The entire DLC has had you collecting ingredients from the bosses, and those ingredients are all used in the first phase as projectiles. That's fucking genius, and is a great way to make this feel like a finale. The animations of the ingredients dying are also so brutal they make me laugh from how cruel it is. Like, these limes genuinely get cut into pieces and get served as boomerangs. Oh my god. It's like watching Annoying Orange when you're too young to understand that things can look stupid or be ridiculous. So you see Apple get chopped up while screaming and it feels like a live leak video. This is also one of the hardest phases in the game on Expert because there are constant projectiles being flown at all times. But it's okay because all of those projectiles have set and predictable patterns. But it's still the most multitasking you have to do in the entire game. I live for the challenge, but when Esper came, it really does feel like a miracle to get past this one with good enough health. Saltbaker then grows massive as you enter the second phase, and this right here is what sets Cuphead apart. This is the final boss, and they're still throwing out new mechanical ideas. Instead of fighting Saltbaker himself, you have to shoot these sneezing pepper shakers, which then launch themselves at him in the background. Great gag of the pepper herd and the salt, but this is a new take on attacking the boss. It's different mechanically because each of the peppers are firing projectiles and will briefly disappear when launched, encouraging you to multitask and try and take out as many as you can to prevent clutter. Saltbaker here really gives off classic Disney villain energy too. I love his expressions, he is just evil. Once you launch enough peppers, his container breaks, and you enter the utterly nutty final phase. Look at this fucking background! Saltbaker's container is basically a corpse as you're in this ethereal salt realm. I haven't mentioned the soundtrack much in this game, but I have to give a brief praise towards my favorite track in the OST, Bacon the Wonder Tart. It's somehow the perfect mix of bouncy cartoony jazz and RPG final boss theme. It is absolutely perfect, no notes. This third phase is the easiest and the shortest, but it's great at giving you a moment to take in the atmosphere, establish a threat, and make you tense. Saltbaker is no longer contained, and after the twins are defeated, he summons a fucking salt tornado as his soul rides into the arena. You're platforming on shards of glass, pieces of his corpse, as tormented Saltbaker faces act as a box to keep you caged. You're so desperate for platforms that Saltbaker himself has to be parried off of to survive. The music is timed perfectly to be at its most intense here. One wrong move can get you killed. This is an epic final encounter. But let's mute the audio, put on whatever chill jam you want, and look at this entirely mechanically. This is a perfect final phase. The reason why I love this so much mechanically is that it actually brings up a good point the rest of the game doesn't show. Smaller targets are harder to hit. Saltbaker's soul here is small, constantly moving and deals contact damage, making him difficult to attack and defend. This is on top of the falling platforms in the bottomless pit, meaning that every jump has to count, and you can never just stay still. This sounds frustrating as hell, but there is absolutely nothing else to worry about. There is a single hazard not counting the pit. The rest are safe platforms to jump onto. It's simple. Sure, narratively, the simplicity makes it feel like an epic one-on-one, like all the formality has been shoved out and it's just you two in a brutal fight to the death, but that is merely a side effect of the mechanical idea. You have no fucking idea how refreshing that is. I have seen so many goddamn final bosses that rely on spectacle and catharsis over intelligent design, and it drives me insane. This boss, more than anything, showcases how you can have your cake and eat it too. Gameplay should always go first over aesthetics, because the thing is that if you're an actually good artist, you can make anything look cool. The visuals and sound complement the mechanics. They go the extra mile with detail and atmosphere, but they always take second over core gameplay. How is this so hard to comprehend? This feels like having a long-distance relationship and you finally meet up and it's the best week of your life, and then you go back and realize you have nothing. This is such a good final boss that it makes others look worse by comparison. It actually kind of makes me upset because now I have to go back to video games that aren't this good. If I sound mad, it's because I actually am. Not at Cuphead, but the world. This is easily my favorite fight in the game and might be my favorite final boss ever made. And that right there is all I have to say on it. So this game is fantastic. It presents great new ideas and iterates on them with professional expertise. But how do you even get to this point? It feels impossible to carve out your own style and substance. But there's two key words that are exactly how you do it. Get ready, because once the secret is out, I can't put it back in. Be yourself. I know that sounds like the biggest cop-out since clearance sale at the butcher shop, but those after-school specials were right. Being yourself is necessary to accomplish your dreams. Here's the problem. Being yourself is comparatively easy. You'll slip up, you'll make mistakes, but if you have a circle of people that love you, you'll do great. Finding the yourself to be is a task that can take up a significant chunk of your life. Not even in some kind of epic self-discovery way where you become a better person and start injecting testosterone in your legs. No, the real journey as a creative you have to undertake is knowing what you want. Deciphering why you like the things you do, what you enjoy doing, and how you express it. That dream project you've wanted to do since you were a kid becomes more and more boring the better you get and the more you understand actual game design. Do I actually want to make a Crash Bandicoot game with 400 levels? Does anyone want to play that? Once the bubble bursts and you fully realize that most people don't know what they want and simply latch on to recognizable superficial attributes like leeches, and you have to do the dirty work of figuring out that want, some people look in horror and desperately want to stay in the bubble where their entire mental health state is dependent on if the new Sonic game is good, where a cast and world have inherent magic to them as if they aren't made by artists but gods, and a bad new installment is like watching your brother get addicted to heroin, which, hey, bubbles are cozy, I'm not the smartest, I'm probably in one without even realizing, but also, once you escape that bubble and have to start figuring out why games are fun, that's when you become a game design pervert like me. You start drooling over spreadsheets, asset counting, project management, work distribution. Give me a computer with working internet and a game to direct, I can survive a fucking nuke testing site. The kind of pervert shit they had to talk about during Cuphead's design process I can only dream of. You had to decide what the metrics for getting the top rank were and the exact numbers required? I ask as my face turns red, fanning myself with my own hand. Cuphead's directors, the Moldenhauers, were able to achieve such a masterpiece because they knew what they wanted and they knew what people playing wanted. We did the hard part of figuring out how to make you happy. Now fork over the asking price and let us entertain you. This isn't to say any game dev dev that knows the secret instantly turns into a god. Your flaws as a human will often show in what you make. Arrogance, self-loathing, sloth, doubt, anxiety. I have played games where I can instantly tell what this person should talk to their therapist about by their sense of writing and game design. And my art isn't immune either. Can you tell I struggle with narcissism and irrationally strong emotional reactions? Can you tell I take this shit way too seriously because it feels more real to me than real life? Did you notice my horrible, unending anxiety over rejection, over being told I'm wrong, and my crippling need to be correct? You probably did, because I'm 21 years old, and I'm not some kind of seasoned professional that can sand off all those edges. I'm a people pleaser wrapped in the shell of a pretentious critic, and for some reason I think pointing this out will make people like me more. Nobody's immune. Cuphead has the luxury of being a masterpiece, so I can't pull my card trick of psychically predicting that Jared is a secret bedwetter based on poor dodging mechanics. But what I can do instead is never shut the hell up about it. And not shut up I have. Cuphead, after the long journey of self-discovery, firmly planted itself as a boss rush run and gun with visuals based on retro animation. And while these are obviously two things the authors love, they also complement each other. Fleischer cartoons were animated and structured in a way that feels natural for this gameplay loop. It isn't pure indulgence, it's a thoughtful love letter, and they discuss in the art book how the style came to life naturally due to needing to set themselves apart. Not just because they're so brain-rotted over this specific era and style. You can't just take your favorite game genre and your favorite visuals and smush them together. You have to really think about what you're bringing to the table at every step. Cuphead is healthy self-love, and this is no better represented than in the game's difficulty. If you're not used to the genre, you're gonna die a lot of times and each boss will feel like a major hurdle. You'll need multiple sessions just to fight 2 bosses. One might ask why, and blame something like game length, but the reason why a hard game is fun isn't because of difficulty. It's that the difficulty forces you to engage with all the game's mechanics and fully digest the boss. How many, say, 2D Mario levels have you played that are just in one ear, out the other? Some say the game is too hard to be able to fully appreciate the visuals, but I couldn't disagree more. The fact that you really need to pay attention to every aspect of the boss makes you love those details even more. The game demands me to care about it and everything it has to offer, and I love that about it. You'll notice, almost all of my favorite games of all time are either pretty damn hard or have an optional challenge that makes it really hard, and that's because those games force me to engage with them. I played through Portal 1 and 2 for the first time this year, and my memory is a blur of white rooms and funny jokes. I haven't played I Wanna Be the Guy since I was a teenager, and I can tell you about most rooms in it because it forced me to be fully invested. This is also why I keep singing the praises of the ranking system. Your checkmarks are extremely deliberate. Get a good time, don't get hit, parry a lot, use your supers. A ton of games suffer from the highest level of play being the lamest. While the game is already layered enough for you to fear the Reaper, not being allowed to take your time and having to stay on the offense, while making sure to parry enough stuff, and actually utilize your super meter, means that every mechanic is directly in front. But if the game slips for a moment, if there's a single boss where they go too far, the illusion is broken. Caveats have to be given out. It's why I don't 100% levels in Doom. It's not more engaging, it's just busy work. There was exactly one moment when S ranking where I went, okay, this could use a change, and it's phase 2 of Gnome Way Out, where gnomes are constantly appearing at the bottom of the screen and can be obscured by the foreground, and you have to worry about the ball being thrown by these puppets. If the gnomes appeared from the top instead, or the foreground was taken out, this would be a lot easier. But I still beat it and I had fun. It was just the one time where I felt like something was up. Apart from that, it's perfect. And if you know me, you know I praise this game and Pizza Tower a lot. They come up constantly when I discuss game design. And there's plenty of other games I'll bring up for comparison, but these 2 games have one special thing in common. They demanded near perfection from me, and I agreed on the terms that it should give near perfection back. And the game shook my hand and said to me, a deal's a deal. No tricks, no lies, just me and it. And I think that's really all there is to say. Designing a game is like a scientific paper. You have a theory, a thesis, and points of research. You don't just copy and paste the results of other tests or continuously quote other studies, you source them, reference them, and use the results to find your own conclusion. An essay should be at most 10% quotes. Someone already invented fire, and there's no shame in that. Derivative spiritual sequel indie games are like trying to make the microwave again. Someone already fucking did that. Use what it taught us to find a new theory to research. Cuphead's theory is turning boss fights, something almost every action genre struggles with, into the entire game, and they fucking nail it because they sourced the right research the previous game design scientists conducted. This is fun, this isn't. Let's isolate the right materials and see what sparks fly. Cuphead knows it didn't invent the microwave, but it still wants to invent, and that's why it's a masterpiece. Do I have to add anything else? Do I keep having to convince you that this game rocks? This video was sparked by me just realizing I never did the S ranks, and after doing that, just thinking about how much I love this game. It helped me re-experience a game I thought I squeezed all the fun out of, but now now I just have even more love for it. It shot up as my big number 3 in my top 5 list, and I do feel a little self-conscious that the pretentious obscure games girl has 2 modern indie games in her top 5, but hey, quality comes first. If you haven't played Cuphead yet, you have to get back on that saddle, because perfection is rewarding, whether it's playing a game at its highest level or making a game of the highest quality. It's a sweet, sweet nectar that I never want to let go of. I love it. I am so excited for whatever studio MDHR is cooking next. I would love for them to stick to their hand-animated style, even if it isn't specifically Fleischer, but try a new genre. A fighting game with this animation quality would make me drool, especially since these guys are huge fighting game nerds. Or hell, step out of action games and do something wacky. Make a fucking Looney Tunes RPG, I know you guys love Final Fantasy. Make a goddamn RPG in the style of a Warner Brothers cartoon. Fuck it, dude, I'll write it for you. Just please give me something new. Cause after the DLC, you can leave Cuphead to rest. You can give him cameos and keep it in the same world or whatever, but you got the best you could out of this gameplay loop. This game shows I can trust you. Mastery's reward is itself, and to the victor go the spoils.
Well, Cuphead and his pal Mugman, their new friend Chalice too. By chance they stopped into a bake shop, mischief was on the menu. Now the debts are paid, the pastries are baked, there is one thing left to say. The delicious